with way too much in this country and it's time to put a stop to it, then have I got a vice presidential prospect for you. Joining us now is Virginia House Delegate Charniele Hearing. She is the Democratic Minority Whip. She's chair of the legislature's Reproductive Rights Caucus. Delegate Hearing, it's good to have you with us here tonight. It's nice to meet you.
Thank you for having me.
Your governor, Bob McDonnell, made kind of a double reversal this week, specifically on the issue of rape victims and incest victims and abortion. What have you understood his position on that issue to be, and has it arisen in Virginia state politics?
Well, I've always understood his position to be the only exception would be life of the mother. Then I hear, oh, well, there's an exception for rape and incest, and now I'm hearing something back to where he originally was. It's actually causing my neck to get whiplash because we're going back and forth so much. It's a little shocking. And Rachel, yes, it has been an issue. The governor amended the mandatory ultrasound bill in Virginia. He had an opportunity to let his views be known. He did not build an exception into that bill. That was actually a Democratic legislature who put an amendment onto the bill to give an exception for rape victims. But I think it's been consistent on that he only believes it's the life of the mother. But it's a little disheartening to see him flip and then say rape and incest, because it leaves Virginians not knowing really where he stands.
In terms of how his, I would say, apparent vice presidential ambitions are affecting Virginia state politics, do you think that the governor has been either describing his positions or legislating and governing in a way that reflects national ambitions, or has he been doing the same thing all along?
Well, I think right now it's clearly that he has national ambitions. He campaigned on jobs and the economy, then supports an extreme social agenda and legislation when we're in session in the legislature. Right now, he spent over several hundreds of thousands of dollars for TV commercials, and then stomping around for Mitt Romney and other extreme Republicans on their elections and on their campaigning. So it's a different message that's being sent, and I know that he's trying to make up for all the bad publicity that he's rightfully gotten for the mandatory ultrasound bill, and he's trying to cover it. And it's unfortunate for Virginia, because he needs to be here talking about jobs and the economy and actually working with us and working with small businesses.
As a person who's been covering Virginia, I think we've been covering Virginia more intensely than a lot of other national outlets, mostly because I think the Attorney General, Ken Cuccinelli, and Governor McDonnell were elected and came to power at the same time with such interesting, very far-right backgrounds. And one of the things that's been interesting covering it, that I'm curious as to your perspective on this as somebody in the legislature, is that particularly Governor McDonnell always talks about how his priority is jobs, jobs, jobs. He only wants to talk about jobs and the economy. That's all he wants to be asked questions about. When he's asked questions about other things, he turns his answers around to those issues. But it seems like inside the legislature, there's a ton of social issues legislation that's being moved. He moved 35 anti-abortion bills himself as a legislator. What do you see as the distance between the articulation that jobs, jobs, jobs is the agenda, and what your real agenda is living it day to day as a delegate?
Right, and that's exactly it. They articulate something, jobs, 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 don't want to debate on issues that are social issues that we know that they're going to take votes on and, in fact, introduce bills on. And so what happens as a legislator, and they still don't have their pulse on middle America, when they file those extreme bills, what happens is that my office spends an inordinate amount of time responding to people who are calling actually frightened to death about what they're seeing and what they're hearing. I mean, that's very true, and it's very honest, and it's very interesting that they always want to minimize these social issues. But we are talking about constitutional rights, voting, access to reproductive health care, very fundamental things to Americans, and they seem not to get that this is something serious and that people will take it serious, and they can't just turn it off and say, well, I just want to talk about jobs. We got to hold them accountable.
Virginia House Delegate Charniele Hearing, the Democratic Minority Whip, chair of the legislature's Reproductive Rights Caucus. Man, thank you very much for joining us tonight. It's really nice to have you here on the show. I hope you'll come back sometime.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Rachel.
All right.